Hey guys, in this video I'm going to walk you through the process of making Janes and open toe Janes. So on the right you can see all the supplies needed for the Janes shoe. We have 2 pieces of foam, 4 pieces of chipboard, and then we have the fabric pieces cut out. We have 2 pieces cut out to cover the insole. I have the lining fabric for the side piece of the shoe cut in the same fabric as the insole. And then we have the side fabric, the main toe of the fabric, and that cross piece that crosses across, all cut from this same floral print. Then for the open toe Janes, it's the same shoe construction. The toe piece is just one less pattern piece, and we have an added pattern piece for the back heel. So the process will be the same for both. I'll go through the process of making each toe portion of the shoe so you can see them, and then the instructions for the rest of the shoe are interchangeable. They're a little bit different in each pattern, but you can use either construction method, either sewing the toe to the shoe insole first or gluing the insole to the sole and then just gluing the body of the shoe down. You can use either method for either shoe pattern. Now for both of these, the supplies that we'll need for both are elastic for the toe triangle piece, steam-a-seam, heat and bond, and then the trim that we want to use for around each sole. Now the first step that I like to do for both patterns is to carefully clip and mark the pattern pieces on the toe pieces. So you can see right here we have this toe piece cut out and we have this triangular area right here. So I'm just going to go ahead right at the beginning, have my pattern piece on both pieces of fabric, and I'm just going to cut straight up into the top of that point, just like that. And then I can also go ahead and mark my fold lines if I want to by snipping a tiny little snip into my seam allowance area. But since we're using steam-a-seam, which is cut at 1/4 inch wide, this isn't completely necessary. It's just preference, just to make sure that you keep it all completely even. So then we'll do the same thing on the Janes toe piece as well, cutting straight up into this triangle. And then you also want to note on this one that we have notches on the top of this piece as well as the top of the slanted toe piece. And this is to make sure that when the shoes are open, that those slanted portions go in opposite directions. So it'll help you position that toe slant in the proper place. To begin, we're going to take the toe piece and the slanted toe piece. So these are the pattern pieces, just so you can identify what pieces I have. And I have these sitting right side up and these are wrong side up. So I'm just going to take this steam-a-seam and I'm going to peel off a piece and set it right on this bottom edge. And I just carefully press it down and just tear it. So I have a piece that is the right length. Then I'm just going to press that lightly. It will adhere to the wrong side. Then once this has cooled, you peel this paper off and you can see I have that sticky residue is on there. So we're just going to carefully fold that up. You'll notice that your cut lines will line up. So you fold it right at that point and then they line up on the edges, and then you're just going to press this again. And then you have a finished edge on the slanted toe piece. Then we're going to go ahead and just set these on the toe piece, matching the notches, just like this. And you can see that we have a slant line going in the opposite direction on both toe pieces. So now we'll just carefully sew top stitch lines across this diagonal line and then just baste this toe area together. Now we're going to take 2 pieces of steam-a-seam and press them right on this triangular opening. We'll peel this off. And then we're just going to fold back to make a triangle. And it folds back onto itself. So we have that pressed up out of the way, and there's a tiny bit of seam that is sticking up above the triangle, and we're going to cover that with elastic in just a minute. But first we're going to take another piece of seam right along this bottom edge, and remember this is a 1/4 inch, which is exactly the seam allowance fold line marking that we have on the pattern. So we'll carefully press that on the edges, being really careful not to get up here because you'll get seam stuck to your iron. Then once those are cool, we can peel off this paper. Then I'm going to place the elastic just above that. I'm going to fold this up over, and this is sticky, so it will fold up on top of the elastic on both sides. And you can check it from the front just to make sure we have a tiny little triangle. The elastic is going to peek out right there. So then I'm just going to go ahead and press this again. And I can press it from both sides just to make sure that that elastic really is secure by the seam that's up at the top of the triangle. So I'm just going to turn it over and make sure that I have that in this tiny little area pressed down really well. Once you've repeated for the other side, we'll take this over to the machine and we'll stitch along this edge and up over this triangle and then back down the other side. Now the open toe Jane has a similar construction for the whole bottom edge of the shoe, but for the top there's no slanted toe piece. The top portion is actually open and the toes peek out. So for this one we have an added step right here where we are marking a 1/4 inch on the wrong side of the fabric from this inside curve. And this will just help us to have a very even fold line and to clip into this curve so that it folds really smoothly. So you can see I have this marked right here, and I'm just going to carefully snip into this curve, not past my line, just in a few places, and that will make this very easy to then come and press this so that it turns and has an inward curve, and all of those are going to press open. And then I have this edge all turned under. Then for the remainder of this, I'm just going to follow the same steps as the other pattern. I'm going to press that triangle open. I'm going to set my elastic down. And then we'll press that to hold this whole toe piece. Then I'll flip them over, give them a final press from the front. Then we're going to take this over to the machine and we'll top stitch along this top curve, and then the same we'll top stitch along the bottom up over this triangle and then along the other side. The side pieces of the shoes have a narrow lining and then a little bit taller side piece. So this would be the outside of the shoe, and then these right here are the interior lining. So here's an example where we've used purple, and you can see on the inside there is white. One thing that I like to do is to take a piece of heat and bond, and this still has the paper on one side, and apply it to the lining piece. So you can see here, it's the same size as the lining, but it's cut just below the seam allowance. So the firmness and the stability is going to be on the side piece of the shoe, but it still lets me use that seam allowance to turn the edge under with the side fabric. So I'm just going to apply this to the inside, which would be the wrong side of my fabric. This is very similar to seam. We're just going to press this down. And then once this cools, we can peel this paper off. And you can see here there's that sticky residue. So it's just a wider piece. And this is going to be pressed onto the fabric and then that will give a nice stiffness like using interfacing. Now you can decide if you want to go ahead and peel the paper off before you stitch your pieces together, or just wait until after you're done, and then you can use that as a guide for your seam allowance. So now we're just going to take these pieces, the lining, and this is the right side, this is the wrong side with the heat and bond on it, and then the side piece of the shoe. So we have right sides together, and we're going to line up that top edge of the shoe. So this has been stitched down, and now when I am going to turn this around to the inside, I'm going to turn it and line up the bottom edges, and then that's going to give me a little bit of the right side of the shoe fabric folded over to the inside. But first I'm going to go in and just grade this seam allowance a little bit by trimming out the lining fabric. So I'm just going to press that, and I have the heat and bond that's on that lining fabric, so that will keep that all nice and secure. And then I have that ready to go to assemble the shoe, and that just gives a nice firm edge and side to the shoe that makes it much easier to put the shoe on and off the doll. In the open toe Janes pattern, there is an added heel piece that fits onto the back heel of the shoe, and it holds a piece of twill tape or ribbon right in the back, so you have something to grip on to put the shoe on a little bit easier. So you can use this on either of the Janes, even the no-sew Janes. You can use a thing like this, part of the design, on any of those patterns. So to add this feature, we're going to add it before we fold the lining over. So for this one, we have sewn down that lining piece, and it does still have the heat and bond on the back side, but we have it pressed open, and we're going to attach that heel portion first, and then we'll fold that part under, and then all the stitching won't show through on the lining side. So this is what that pattern piece looks like, and we're just going to go ahead following the fold lines on the piece and fold the sides and the top under. And a quick way to mark center back on this piece is to just fold it in half and then just cut a tiny little slit right at that fold. Then we have that little mark right there, so we know how to place this right on the center. So I'm going to take my little piece of twill tape, and you can also use ribbon. This is 1/8 inch twill tape, which might be hard to find, so this is 1/4 inch ribbon. You could use either to do this. So I have this folded in half, and I'm going to set that right where I have my little slit so that it's right in the center, and it's going to extend above this fold line about 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to place this on top of it, making sure that that is in the center. And then we'll go ahead and pin this down. One other way that you could do this is to apply heat and bond to the back side. Then we'll go ahead and peel off that paper. I have the twill tape centered on my back heel, and I'm going to set that right on top of it, and that will hold the whole thing down. And then I'm still going to go ahead and top stitch around the edge. Then once we have this sewn down, you'll go ahead and flip this over, fold down the lining, and it's going to fold that top edge under just a tiny bit, and we'll press that down. You could flip it over and press nicely from the top side as well. Then you have this heel portion on here, which is another layer of fabric and another layer of heat and bond. So the heel of this shoe is very firm. It's hard for me to even squish that. If I push hard enough, I can scrunch it up, but it has a lot more resistance, and it has this little pull tab, so you can pull that up and over the heel of the foot. Okay, now we have the toe pieces and the side pieces ready to go. So this part's pretty quick, but it might seem a little bit confusing to just attach the side to the toe. Now you can do this with Steam-A-Seam or without. If you use Steam-A-Seam and you want to just place it right on the edge, it will give you that 1/4 inch seam line, which is very helpful. And it will add a little bit of stability when you're going to sew that seam. So here I have the side piece. This is my top edge, the finished edge, and then the sides and the bottom are raw edges. I have a tiny little notch that I cut right here, so I see center back, and I just did that by folding it in half and cutting a tiny little angle right there, and it gave me a nice little notch, so I know that that is center back. Now I'm just going to take my toe piece and my side piece, and I'm going to overlap a 1/4 inch right on the one side. And I have Steam-A-Seam on there, so it's slightly sticky, so it will hold. Then we go ahead and press this. Then since I have Steam-A-Seam on here, before I sew that, I'm just going to fold this in a circle, and then I'm going to fold this side back down. So I have both side pieces folded, and I'm going to overlap this side at a 1/4 inch as well. And it kind of creates like a little bit of a triangle on this back side. But I'm just going to do that. I'm going to press right here, and the Steam-A-Seam will secure that. You could also not use Steam-A-Seam and just pin these sides, but I'm going to go over and then I can easily sew this, and my side piece is out of the way. I'm going to sew along both of these sides. Okay, now we have the shoe bodies completed, and you can see here that we have gone ahead and stitched down the sides, and so we have that shoe body. This is the open toe Jane, and then these are the Janes, and you can see how the toe slant would slant from the big toe out downward to the outside of the shoe. Now we get to the fun part, and for this illustration I'm going to use a hot glue gun to assemble the rest of the shoe. Now you can do this with other types of glue, but you'll have to wait between each stage of assembly for the glue to dry. So it takes a lot longer to create a pair of shoes. Now you're gonna notice right here we have a right foot and a left foot. We have the insole, the bottom of the sole, and then the foam. So I'm just going to set these like this so that I know I have a right and a left, and then I'm going to cover each of these with my fabric because this is going to go on the inside of the shoe. And to do that, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue around the edge and quickly just go ahead and press the edges down. And I'll just work my way around, being sure that the fabric is pulled tight on the other side. Now this glue is not very hot, so my fingers are not protected. There are things you can buy to cover the tips of your fingers, but I can smooth this out pretty quickly. It's a little bit sticky, but it allows me to press it down and have that fabric tightly around the edge of this chipboard. Now I've had people ask me about chipboard, and you can cut thinner cardboard and stack them together to create something that's as thick and sturdy as this type of chipboard. So if you just had a cereal box or something like that, you could cut several layers of this same piece and then stack them together and glue them together to create something that's a little bit sturdier. Now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do the opposite shoe, and I just want to make sure that I have my toes pointing in the right direction. So here we have a right insole and a left sole, and we're ready to put the shoe body on the shoe. Now the most important thing with the shoe design is making sure that the rise of the side of the shoe is only 3/4 inch above the sole. So I have this set at 3/4 inch, And I'm gonna go around and I'm actually gonna make little marks on here so that I can see where I wanna have that folded and make sure that I have enough folded under the bottom of the shoe. If I don't fold enough under the bottom and the shoe rise is up too high, it's actually a lot harder to get the shoe on the foot. So it's important to make sure that we mark that 3/4 of an inch around the shoe edge, especially on the back and on this heel portion. Now I'm gonna put the shoe sole into the shoe and the shoe body is coming up over the edge. Now I wanna be sure that I have the heel at the center back of the heel and that my two sides, which are these side seams, are actually parallel to each other on the side of the shoe. So that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to look at my depth of what I'm going to fold under, and I'm going to begin working with that glue at the back portion of my shoe. So I'm going to put glue down on here and I'm just going to fold this over, and I want to be sure that I'm folding right on these pink lines. And then I'm just going to continue to work my way around the shoe, looking for those pink lines. Then I'm going to check my toe placement and make sure that I have enough folded over on the toe as well. And then you can see here we've got a right foot where it is assembled around the sides and the back. Then I'm going to flip this upside down, and then I have another piece of cardboard and I'm going to sandwich that right there on the bottom in the same direction as the shape of the toe to really keep all of this fabric secure, making sure that I have that all lined up. And as long as I put the glue in the middle first, I can pry this open a little bit and add more glue into the side spaces. And then press that down and then just rub it off. And here this whole piece of chipboard is going to be covered, so if you get glue on the bottom of this, it's fine. So now we have that second piece of chipboard glued down. Then for the final step, I'm going to glue a piece of foam to the bottom, matching the shape of the sole in the direction that it's going as well. So we're just going to do that with a little bit of glue, and I'm just going to put some in the middle. And I'm going to set this down right on there, pressing the center first, making sure that it's nice and smooth. And this is going to be the finished bottom of the shoe. So just make sure that you're not getting glue on the bottom of the foam. And then I can go around the edges and just put a little bit more glue around each edge. And that is the shoe almost complete. The last step we have to finish the shoe is to wrap this seam edge right here where you can see the fabric folding under and the chipboard and the foam. So for this pair of shoes, I'm going to use 1/4 inch elastic. I'm going to begin at the insole because it would be the least obvious place to have the seam. So I'm just going to start putting glue on this edge, and I'm going to just wrap the elastic around the side. And you want the trim to line up with the base and cover the top edge of the fabric. So with the elastic, you can pull it a little bit so it has a nice smooth finish, and just rub the glue if any comes out around the bottom edge. And then as we get close to the finished side, we can kind of determine where we're going to need to cut that. Not quite there yet, so let's just Put some on this toe. So I have that pressed down and I'm just going to use that as my guide here. And then those will fit right next to each other. And there we have a finished shoe. So that wraps around the edge and I can go around and pull out any little parts of dry glue. Once it's dry, it actually will come right out. So there's the back, the side with the seam, the outside of the foot, which is smooth, and the toe. So now we're just going to repeat this on the other shoe and we'll have a matching pair of shoes. Now for the Jane's shoe that has the closed toe, it will glue together the same method, the 3 layers of chipboard and foam, but the only difference is positioning that toe piece. So to glue this one down, we're going to start in the same method, which is to glue the heel piece down right in the center, and that'll help us secure that. And you just want to make sure that I had that little notch. So I'm just going to fold that over so that my notch is right there at the center back. And I do want to make sure that I have this measured so that this is 3/4 of an inch extending above this fold line. Now I'm going to work my way around to the front of the shoe and I'm going to look at both sides, and I have these side seams and I want to make sure that they're at the same distance straight across the shoe. And then for the toe, we have the basting stitches that we sewed along the toe, so we can pull those threads to just kind of, it's like easing a sleeve in. So you don't really want to have any folds on the top of the shoe, but it will kind of pull it and make it round so that it fits right around the edge of that chipboard sole. So I'm going to work on the heel and then the 2 side areas, and then I'm going to ease that toe area down. Pull those threads a little bit. Now I'm just checking my toe placement right here, and you can see that the shape of the shoe looks pretty good. So I have my sides even and my toe is slanting down from the insole, the inside of the foot, to the outside of the foot. So then I'll go ahead and finish gluing down the edges all the way around. Then I can trim off those basting thread tails and just make sure I don't have anything like that on the bottom of the shoe. So that's ready to go, and her foot's going to slip right in there. And now we're just going to finish the process the same as the other shoe. I'm going to take this chipboard and glue it down, and then I'll cover it with the foam, and then we'll wrap the edge in the trim. So here we have the finished pair of Janes and open toe Janes, all glued up and ready to go and put on the doll's feet. And then behind that, we have a couple other examples. These ones back here are for Journey Girls, so they're just a slightly different sole shape. And then we also have the open toe Janes for WellieWishers as well, which is a quick and easy pattern to put together. I hope this has demystified the process of making Janes or open toe Janes shoes. It's really a lot of fun once you get the hang of it, and you can make a bunch of pairs in different fabrics, different colors, and different styles. Good luck with all your shoemaking projects.